have sold 180 million copies worldwide in 52 languages. They've been read online by another 80 million. He's made it to the list of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. And he's made Wimpy a buzzword among preteens absolutely everywhere. He's arguably the most popular children's author in the world today with his Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. And we're very, very lucky to have Jeff Kinney with us here in New Delhi today. Thank you so much for coming to our studio here in NDTV.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
And there are absolutely lots of very excited children here as well who are just dying to ask you questions. But before I throw this open to them, I have to say I have a few questions of my own that I've been dying to ask you. This is your first trip to India, so first impressions?
It's fantastic. I've only been here for about 48 hours, but I've gotten to see a little bit of Delhi and traveled a bit. I'm going to Mumbai tomorrow. So this is a big deal for me. You know, I live in the United States. India has always just been a faraway dream to me, and I can't believe that my books have brought me here.
But now that you're here in India and you've seen it firsthand, do you think your character could come here maybe? Would you set a book here?
That's interesting. You know, what I've always tried to do with my books is make it so that you can't tell where they're taking place. Because, you know, sometimes I feel self-conscious about the fact that they're set in America, but I like the idea that the books are placeless, because I want kids in India to be able to read the books and say, you know, that could be me. That's my childhood. I have parents, I have siblings, I have pets, all these things that Greg Heffley has, and so that's what I really strive to do.
So Greg Heffley, of course, is this preteen who's a bit of a middling student. He's not really great at anything, and somehow he manages to mess up pretty much everything he does, right. Mostly. And do you think that's what children identify with?
I think so. I think that you look at Greg and you know that he's got it worse than you do. On every cover of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, Greg is frowning or he's grimacing or something. You know, you look at him and usually you look at a book where there's a child protagonist and they're smiling. So I think that that's a message to the kids that, you know, Greg's kind of struggling, and sometimes that can actually be funny.
And of course, Greg doesn't really grow, does he?
He doesn't. That's one of the fun things about Greg is that he's a cartoon character, and the best cartoon characters don't change over time. If you think of a character like Charlie Brown or Bart Simpson, they have a first day of school every year, and they never get older. And I think that's what we like about our cartoon characters, is that there's a comfort that they're not going to change, even if you do.
So do you think of Greg as a cartoon character rather than a fictional or literary character?
I do. I used to think of him as a literary character, but then I saw a character like Harry Potter. He gets older and he sort of moves on. Right. In a way, his story has to end, because we don't really want to read about Harry Potter, you know, as he moves out of childhood. So I think that that's something that's kind of fun about these characters, about my characters, is that you can count on him to stay young.
And how difficult is it when you sit down to write your next book? How difficult is it to get into the mind of an 11 or 12-year-old each time?
I started writing when I was 28, and I'm 45 now, but I still feel like I can step into the mindset of a kid. And I'm worried that there's going to be a day when something clicks and I can't do that anymore, but I really hope I can do it for a while.
But it's not as though Greg is only concerned with children's ideas or children's things. I mean, for instance, in Double Down, your latest book, he's actually talking about cryogenics, about freezing his body and waking up sometime in the future.
Right.
So that's quite interesting.
That was something that was kind of fun to do, is that what I realized is that kids have a very active imagination, and when you hear about something like cryogenics, like the idea of freezing yourself and then waking up later on, that's something that a kid will dwell on and think about what would that actually be like. And so something that's fun about the diary format is that I can really explore what Greg is thinking. I can get inside his mind.
I'm going to throw this open to a few questions from our audience over here. So who'd like to go first? Just about everybody. Here, what about you in the last row? Yes.
Which is your favorite Wimpy Kid book, and why is it so?
I think my favorite book is The Long Haul, because that's the one I wrote for the screen. In fact, we just finished filming The Long Haul, and I also like it for sentimental values, which we'll get to later.
Okay, you in the front row.
When you were like a kid, were you a wimpy kid? Because I am.
You are, right? Yeah, I was kind of wimpy. Some of the things that Greg does, I did. Do you remember in Roderick Rules when Greg is in the bathroom when he's on the swim team and he hides in the bathroom from his swim coach. I did that for years and years. So I'm glad you can say you're wimpy. That's good. I think it would have been hard for me to.
You think you're encouraging children to come right out and say they're wimpy? Because that's hard, especially for Indian kids. That's very hard.
Really?
Because you're supposed to excel at everything from day one.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be the best and brightest.
Yeah.
You're supposed to go to engineering or medical
Right.
college when you're, faster than anybody else.
Right. I think it's good. I think it's refreshing.
So you're kind of encouraging people to slack off just that little bit.
Right.
It might be a bit worrying for teachers, though.
Did you face the same problems as Greg Heffley faces when you were in middle school?
I did. I faced a lot of the same problems. I had a lot of the same problems you guys probably have with teachers and bullies and homework and a bad pet and all of those kinds of things. So I feel like I'm just writing about childhood, and I'll bet we have a lot in common in the way we've grown up.
Okay. Yes, you with the glasses. Yes.
Why did you become an author?
Why did I become an author? It happened kind of on accident. I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist, and I worked on that for years and couldn't succeed. And I said, what am I going to do here? Because I'm burning to be a cartoonist. And so I decided to put my cartoons into books, and that's the way that I was successful.
Okay. Who do we have here? Yes.
Well, there was a saying that there was an Indian friend of Greg Heffley called Chirag Gupta. Well, did you have an Indian friend, and do you remember anything of him or her?
Yes, I had lots of Indian friends, actually. I had a friend named Chirag. And I still do to this day. We have Indian kids on our street. So, that's a part of our culture in America, is that there's a big Indian population, actually.
You have a really good sense of humor. And where does that come from, and who is your comic inspiration?
That's a great question. I'm glad you think I have a good sense of humor. Thank you. I think a lot of my sense of humor came from my own family. Like we all like to joke around a lot, and we like to tell and retell funny stories of things that happen in our family. And one of the things about the Diary of a Wimpy Kid stories is that they're not really that special in a way, is that all the stuff that happens to Greg could have happened to any of us. So any kid here that starts writing down the funny things that happen to you in your life, you could easily write 10 Diary of a Wimpy Kid style books when you get to be my age.
Okay, let's take a quick round of questions and then he can answer them all in one go. So, yes, what's your question?
Since Roderick drives a van, does he actually have a driving license?
How, where, and why did you get the idea to start writing your first book?
Have you ever been stuck while writing a book?
Okay, great.
Good
So should we
questions.
do those three?
Yes, Roderick has a driver's license. How did I get started? A light bulb went off over my head when I realized I needed to draw like a kid. And am I ever stuck writing? I'm always stuck writing. There are some creators for whom creativity just never stops. They can't turn it off. I'm the opposite of that. It's very, very difficult for me to come up with a joke.
Yes, in the last two, the two of you, why don't you both ask your questions and then he can respond yes.
How long you take average to write a book?
And what's your question?
Have you ever actually had a disastrous road trip like the long haul?
I think that I take about 9 months to write a book if I have the time, sometimes as little as 5. And I've only had bad, disastrous road trips like the Heffleys. Have you ever been on a long road trip? No? Do people
But
do
have
that?
you been on a holiday with your family where you've been miserable?
Yeah, right.
How many of you? Let's have a show. Oh my goodness!
Is that
your
typical? I'm sorry.
I'm a bit worried of this actually.
Is that typical in India to drive for a long distance?
Not always. I'm sure there are more road trips now than.
Yeah.
What was your worst road trip?
When I went to Rajasthan in the car and I had to vomit twice.
Oh no!
That sounds bad.
Okay. Yes, you.
How did you get the idea of drawing cartoons with the novels?
Okay. Well, it all came from wanting to be a cartoonist, is that I decided that if I couldn't get my cartoons into newspapers, that maybe I could get them into a different format. So I think of my books as sort of long-form comics. Rather than literature, I think of them as comics.
All right, you were talking about the long haul earlier, and you said that that's a particular favorite and that it has certain sentimental attachments. Now, I can't help but notice that you've in the dedication you say to Pranav.
That's right.
Was that somebody in India? Would you tell us that story?
Yeah, a family of a kid, the Gupta family actually, reached out to me while I was writing The Long Haul and told me about Pranav, a kid who was who loved my books but was also very gravely ill. And I got connected via his mother Priya, and we did a FaceTime chat actually on Christmas Day. Wow. And I really felt a connection to Pranav, and we talked more than once. Sadly, Pranav passed away, but I wanted to dedicate this book to him because so that his name would live forever and all over the world. Which he had an incredible spirit, still does have an incredible spirit that I think will outlast even my books.
Well, we have Pranav's mother Priya here with us, and it's great to have you, Priya. What made you reach out to Jeff? Was he Pranav's favorite author? Did he read all the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books?
Well, it is still a mystery to me how it happened. There was a lot of Buddhism chanting taking place at our house, and somebody from Penguin, India sent a parcel for Pranav. And during the course of conversation, he had talked about Jeff and his desire to talk to him. And thanks to Penguin, India, UK, USA, they contacted Jeff, and Jeff was so kind to interact with him on FaceTime on Christmas. So that was the best Christmas gift for Pranav. And he was unwell, and it made him so happy. And after that, Pranav and Jeff, they just continued to interact via emails, and a beautiful friendship blossomed between the two, which I was actually unaware of. After we lost Pranav, we went through his emails and realized how much they have interacted with each other. And it was Jeff who guided me to start a page in Pranav's memory. Again, one of your creation, Jeff, which you probably are not really aware of. So yeah, he advised me to write a page in his memory, because a lot was written about Pranav by his friends, teachers and doctors. And it helped me because I was sharing my experiences also, the conversations that we used to have. And it became very big in the sense that it actually started inspiring people.
Right.
And it was really
How did it inspire people?
Sorry?
How did it inspire people?
I was just sharing my experiences, and 2 months after I started that page, a child called me up. It's a public page. So he called me up and he said, I wanted to commit suicide, and I had planned everything. And accidentally I came across this page, and I decided not to. And if I'm alive, it's because of Pranav. So for me, a grieving mother, it came as it hit me hard. Why am I crying? Pranav is still, smiling somewhere.
And he's inspiring people.
Yeah.
What an amazing story. Should we all... What a truly amazing story, and what an inspiration you've been, Jeff.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said inspiration, because the Facebook page is Inspirational Pranav, and anybody that wants to get to know Pranav better and his story, I'd really recommend you visit that page.
And that changed my life forever. Thanks to Jeff, after this book dedication, there were posters on Pranav all over India. There were bookmarks on him, and all this designed by Jeff, his favorite author.
Right.
And Pranav was a die-hard Diary of a Wimpy Kid fan. So, and he wanted to be famous. That was his dream. And Jeff is instrumental in fulfilling his dream. He's known worldwide. And yes.
That's such a fabulous story. Thank you so much, Priya, for coming here and sharing this story with us.